So the first step of this process is called sit down at the piano, and this has to do with courage and then being consistent in creative work for me personally because I designed this whole workflow for myself. Like like 80% of the battle is just sitting down in front of the digital audio workstation to create something consistently so that I one have stuff to put out and two so that I can get better through the passage of time by getting those reps. And like in my experience and through the results I've gotten, I've kind of come to the conclusion that that is the best thing you can do no matter how you feel and no matter what the outcome is. In the at the end it will always have been very good that you actually sat down to create something. So step 1 is to just sit down in front of the piano and prepare your mind to create. Have courage to just be like, I'm going to create and have just a small amount. I don't like the word discipline, but like have a small amount of diligence. I love that word. Be diligent about your practice if you care about improving as a creative and getting any sort of results that you want to get, whether those be monetary or just improving your actual craft. So, step 2 is to find some chords that you like. And I look at this from the perspective of being like a composer. So, a composer would compose daily because they are a composer the same way a carpenter does woodwork every day. Doctors do doctor stuff every day, lawyers lawyer every day. Composers would usually, routinely compose. So, there's no endless well of inspiration. So, sometimes you'll have to sit down and just create even though you're not exactly overflowing with, that impulse to create. I was saying in the video yesterday that some of the most interesting times to create can actually be those times where you feel as though the well is tapped. And so I think the way a composer would do that is they would just go to like whatever instrument they're like pretty well practiced in. It could be a guitar, it could be a piano, it could be anything, right? Something that's got good tone that they can hear all the notes for, and they would just mess around and see what kind of tones and notes they can put together to start creating an idea that you like. And those tones and notes put together are basically just chords, right? And you might be thinking, well, what if I don't know chords? What if I don't know anything about music theory? And should you be castrated for not knowing music theory? No, you're actually better off for not knowing music theory, honestly, because you get to take advantage of it without any of the boring stuff. So, what you can actually do is, and I'll just go to the centerfold drum kit. You do not need to buy this drum kit to do what I'm about to do. I just like to do this because I have it in the kit, right? So I will drag in a scale. Let's go minor natural. And I will link below a full melody making tutorial that will kind of explain this construct a little bit more deeply. But basically, these are the 7 chords in the minor scale. Now let's see what the root note of the one chord is so we can see what key our scale is in. It's an F sharp. I want to go to C sharp really quickly. So let's just move that down a few notes. And now we are in C sharp. And that's where I want to start building the actual melody that I'm going to build. So 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, 6 chord, 7 chord. We've seen it before if we've seen at least 2 or 3 producer content videos at this point, right? So the thing that we're going to do is I'm going to look for chords, and you can go ahead and work along with me if you want to. That could actually be pretty practical instead of just sitting consuming this passively if you have time. If not, that's fine. But working along with it, pausing it to kind of like experiment with the ideas is actually pretty useful. I get the most good results when I do that with tutorials. But anyway, I'm going to just open up a piano that has good tone. FL Keys is just pretty solid, and I don't need to spend any CPU to fire it up. So I'll open it and I'll build a basic 1 chord because I know I want to build something like dark sounding. Now, just to speed this along and for the purpose of demonstration, let's just do something that I know is like in a particular vibe. So I know a particular combination of chords that works well for the Travis Scott vibe would be like the 1-5 chord progression. So we already have our 1 chord here, so we'll just bring our 5 over like that. And we'll extend our chord progression. And then we'll voice that note down 1 octave. And that's pretty dope. I could have done something different just to like show you. There's like, how am I trying to put this? There's many ways you can put this together, right? I could have come in and I could have done something like this. I could have done something like this. Or no, like this. Or I could have built a major chord off of that. We could have done something like this. I could have even built a longer progression if I wanted to, right? I could have gone on to 4 chords, 5 chords. Right, and you could keep going forever if you don't even need to know it that deeply. You just need to know that you can put the chords together, and then I just understand a little bit of tension. Again, check out that full melody guide down below. Also, just like learning a little bit of theory in general can be helpful if you have a little bit of time to spare. That's kind of the point behind that video. But again, for the sake of our demonstration here, I will go back to that 5 chord. I'll just drag this over. We'll highlight all of those, and then again, I'll just voice that down so we have our progression, and I'll just go ahead and save right now. And we can keep moving. So I can get rid of that. I won't really need that anymore. And then I just want to see, maybe I want that. I love B flat. Yeah, that's nice. Now that I have some chords that I like, step 3 of this process is to build a melody. And if you're not comfortable with like the idea of building out melody, it's actually very simple. I have another video that will show you my entire thought process behind it. That'll be linked under the video that will teach you all about some pretty cool music theory things without boring you. But what I want to do is take you through a brief demonstration of the actual workflow. So the thing that I do is still in the piano. I haven't left it yet because again, I'm still thinking from this perspective of the composer. I'm just sitting down and messing around with notes and putting stuff together to see like what I'm actually gonna tell the people that I'm like orchestrating and composing what to do when I get there. I'm composing a piece in my head, in my notepad to take to the people who are gonna play all the stuff. So what I'm gonna do is paste that chord progression into the sampler. And the first thing I'm gonna do is build a motif. And a motif is basically just some kind of like melodic rhythm that follows a chord progression. Usually it follows a chord progression or some kind of like structured note pattern, basically structured note setting. One of the simplest ways to do that is broken chords, where you just take the chord and you break it up into pieces. I like it better up there. Mess with the velocity just a little bit. All right, cool. Then we can basically just take that pattern and match it accordingly. And then I moved my A's down to G sharp, and I moved my C sharp down to C. That's crazy. So now that I've got the motif, I'm going to move on to the bass notes, and that's pretty intuitive because we already have it set up. And I'm actually going to layer that with some bass notes up an octave. And then I'm going to do some strumming with Option plus S on my MacBook, just to humanize the notes a little bit. And I'll actually do some slight randomization with Option plus R, just a little bit on the velocity. So now that we have motif following chord progression, bass notes also following the root notes of the chord progression, now we're just going to build like top line harmony. Now this could also be counter melody, and you're actually welcome to do counter melody. I was on this whole campaign a while ago of like no counter melodies, and I think it's pretty foolish to take a very hard stance against basically anything that's not just outright evil, hate evil. I think it's pretty explanatory why. If you're a human being and you have sense, you should hate evil. Other than that, super stern stances that are like unshakable don't really help anybody, right? Moving away from all that waffling, you can do counter melody if you want to. The reason I prefer the word harmony is because harmony literally means like to fit together, to work together, whereas counter literally means to like go against. And I think I'm just more so of like keen on words and stuff like that. So when I say like harmonizing top line, I really just mean like some notes that fit somewhere in this little like sandwich that we've built of notes so far that sound really nice. Usually they're on top of everything else, but they could also fit in between, which you might see me do. So let me just get into doing that. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is just move all these bass notes up, and that might be really good. And then what I'm gonna do is take this entire thing and then stretch it out one more time to 8 bars. Cool. Even though it's kind of a brief demonstration, I'm thinking I might stash this away as a finished melody later. Really liking how this is going so far. So we've pretty much got our melody built out, and we can move on to step 4, which is to orchestrate symphony. And that just basically means to transpose is the wrong word. Move this over to a bunch of different VSTs to basically simulate our composition of a band playing music together. Basically, I I actually made a like little note next to this step, which was call in a band. So yeah, literally the perspective I have with this is to call in the band that I composed to tell them, hey, I've got this piece of music. I want you guys to play these instruments these ways so that we can make this piece to perform. So that's what we're gonna do right now. And the reason that we did it on the piano is, again, like we said, from the perspective of a composer, we wouldn't have all the instruments available to us. And again, that wouldn't necessarily always be the most constructive way for us to compose something. It might be necessarily overwhelming. And that's one of the things that is overwhelming to me sometimes when I want to create and I kind of have a little bit of a block, is that like, whoa, there's all these VSTs and they make all these sounds. I can't really hear the tone of them the way I want to. Will this fit with this? I don't know. I don't know. At least with this formula, it gives me a way to work through it where I can get to where I can actually test what fits well. And again, I can always take out parts that I don't like. I can always add things in later, but having an actual structure that's built out, having an outline to something is very, very good. Like having a piece of writing outlined is better than just trying to fart something out off the top of your head, right? And it's kind of the same with making beats. It's the same with like anything you do. Structure and order is always going to be very helpful to you. You can always do stuff off your dome. You can, but structure and order is your best friend. Entropy is trying to destroy everything. If you know, you know. So let us orchestrate our symphony. I actually like the idea of having a piano. So what I'm going to do is just open up a different piano that I like. I'm going to go to Decent Sampler. And I'm going to open up Lounge Piano. This is free, by the way. Decent Sampler is free to download, and this pack, Lounge Piano, is free. It's really, really good. I like it. And I'm just going to paste this in. That sounds crazy. I won't lie to you. That sounds good, bro. That sounds really nice. But so the thing is now, I don't actually want all the piano to play all of these notes. So what I'm doing in this process now is beginning to like orchestrate the symphony. So for one, I pretty much don't want this piano to play the bass notes ever. That specific piano, I might have the bass notes come in later for something else when I get into the arrangement phase of this. But for now, I don't want them to be playing at the same time. So what I'm going to do is just clone that decent sampler, paste those notes into this one so that they're separate. And then I'll just kind of mute that for right now so they're out of the way. I know I want them, but not right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bass line that I actually want. So let's go to Repro, get that open, and we'll go to a bass patch that I really like, the dark and heavy sustained bass. Really dope. And we'll just follow that bass line. So maybe we can add some notes. We can do just a little bit of EQ on that before we actually get into the mixing. Okay, I also wouldn't want the piano to do this top line right here. So what I'm going to do is again, cut that. And let's open up expand. And let's just find like a cool sound that we can layer that with. Okay, so I like it so far, but maybe I need to tweak a few things. So let's come in here and just mess with it. And this is where, right, we're like composing and we're thinking, okay, guy on the lead, synth over there, I like it, but do this. So that's like kind of the thought process with this. And it's cool because we can still follow those notes that we had earlier because we started with that structure and we built it out already. Let's see if I can find a different sound. I like this one so far. I might come back to it. Maybe it's like a bell. Maybe it's more acoustic. Oh, and you know what? I think it is, and here's why. Yes. And then what I think is that I would also have some kind of accompanying string. And this is where you're like, oh, like, okay, now I need to call in like a violinist because I like this melody, but I also want it to be harmonized with like such and such instrument. So I've got to call up Doug because he goes crazy on the violin or like whatever, right? My violin player is named Doug and he's awesome. So I'm about to call him up right now and just see like what it'll sound like if he lays something down. So I'm gonna go to this Volitions pack, which is also free in Decent Sampler. Very, very dope as well. And I'm gonna go to this Sinistrous, however you say that. And the reverb on it is crazy, so I usually turn that down pretty much all the way. And I turn down the delay a little bit because I'll usually add my own effects. And we'll just come in to that Decent Sampler. Where is it? Where is it? We opened it in our sampler? Yeah, we did. Okay, cool. It's fine. And we're just following like that top line to build something accompanying off of it. Right, it probably just doesn't go that high. Maybe it's just like one straight note. All right, cool. Let's edit that bell a little bit. Okay, and the luxury of doing all of this in a digital audio workstation is that my digital audio workstation is like a member of the band or the symphony, and I can be like, hey, FL, that bell would sound crazy reversed. Perhaps let's try it. So, what I can do is just mute all of that and then come to the pattern and render that as audio. And we'll just come and we'll drag that in, and then we'll also drag in our pattern. Make that unique, get that out of there. And then we'll reverse this, and then we'll flip it around so that the chords match. Come back into the pattern, and we'll turn off the bells and start turning stuff back on. Let's go down 4. So let's go to Decent Sampler 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. So step 5 is the last step, which is mixing and arrangement. So the reason this step is last is because, for one, that's pretty intuitive for me, and it makes sense in a tutorial format as well, because then we would get caught up on a bunch of stuff that the video is not even about. For two, you don't want to really get caught up on that part because again, when we're thinking about it from this perspective, like I don't want to get caught up thinking from the perspective of like the audio engineer or like the actual performance because like arrangement would be like the performance and audio engineering would also be in the performance, but also there would maybe be stage designers, sound designers. Maybe there's audio engineering if we're like performing for like a CD or an album or something like that. And so it doesn't really help our goal to compose to think from that perspective. But now that we're at this point, we can kind of hop into this role of like, okay, now we're the audio engineer, or now it's the day of the performance, and we want to organize this to be the best sounding, most engaging piece that we possibly can. And that's the whole thought process with that. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get right into the mixing. So the first thing I want to do is just route everything, I guess, honestly. Probably have the two pianos tracked separately and then the bell. Those are kind of the things I want to start working on right away. Cool, so maybe I want to work on this texture first. Origin's the first thing I want. It's a little rough with the artifacts on the high end, but that fixed it up. And then some delay for width. I want this to feel more like a pad, but let's work up to that. Maybe some outer space for like dark verb. I think I'll do that on the bell actually. So let me just drag this preset on there now. Then I'll turn that off here. Now let's go for like Lux verb. Cool. I think I like that so far. Now let's just turn on the bell so we can EQ that against the bell. So like 800 to 800's really the main point there. Let's come back here. And let's see. About 1700 is the main point for that one. So okay, we can get these to tuck in really nicely. That's tight. RC20 on this. And then just a bit of sidechain. For some bounce on that pad melody. Whoops, getting ahead of ourselves there. All right, now let's bring in the piano and see how that fits in. I'm going to open up a master preset just to get some loudness on this. I'm also gonna feed everything into a melody bus. I'm gonna start working on that as well, just so I can mix into all of those bigger effects. It's usually better to start that earlier than later. And honestly, I think the piano sounds fine. Just like EQ, even that, like I don't really need that because I'll just do EQ on the main bus later. And then we can get into arrangement, which is pretty straightforward as well. And again, this might end up being a more speed run type vibe by the time I'm done editing this, but there are full guides to mixing and arrangement that are pretty solid, and I will link you to those below. So check them out. I'm just going to duplicate this over and arrange it really quickly. So maybe no bass for that part. And maybe no violin yet, but it'll come in. Or no, start with the violin, but no bells. And maybe no pad, just for the intro. And then drop the violin. That's hard, that's hard. And then maybe just the piano. Then introduce the bell. You know, just something to have a little bit of build to it, and then it drops in tension right here, and then it builds back up. So I'll just label it out for you guys really quickly. I gotta lay down some drums, bro. Come on, bro. Just real quick. It's nothing, bro. Just come on. I really thought I was gonna get out of here with no drums, bro. It's a quick little melody tutorial. No deal, brother. I got to, bro.
Are mixing a sound. What is the most long
drums.
to take? The drums?
The drums. I don't give a fuck about nothing else. You hear me? Nothing, bro. Nothing. I don't care.
Bro, this is crazy. What? Okay. Okay, right. And I just remembered like right at the end, like I forgot to do some high passing EQ for the parts where the drums are playing and the bass is playing and the melody is playing at the same time. Bunch of stuff. But the point really with all that is to not get caught up on all that. So I wasn't even overthinking from the engineering perspective. It's fine. I can fix it at the end. That's the point. I don't want to get caught up on the part where it's like you have a lot more leeway. And the thing that you want to do is limit the amount of resistance to getting the amount of action potential you need to get a creative idea out so you can actually have the potential to make a really good creative idea. Because the only way a really good creative idea is born is if you get any creative idea out in the first place. And I realized that that was a limit for me. So hopefully this entire workflow was able to help you release some limits in your own creative process. Check out this cook-up appearing on the screen right now. We did it yesterday. It was really fun. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.